coffee chat started and just start off by thanking everyone for being here this afternoon. My name is Anna Marie Tejas. I serve as the Director for Parent and Family Programs at the University of Arizona. And more importantly, I am also the proud parent of a third-year Wildcat, and I have an incoming freshman who will be joining us this fall at the University of Arizona. So I'm thrilled that you've all decided to join us and welcome you to our final coffee chat this semester. So a really quick review of how this is going to function today is all of you have been muted and your video functionality is turned off. This session is being recorded and we will post it later on our website, and I'll share all of that information with you towards the end. But if you grab your mouse and hover it towards your bottom of your screen, there's a toolbox and something will pop up called the QA button. It's a function. When you click on that, the question, a dialog box will appear, and you can type in as many questions that you may have for myself or for my guests joining me today. I have several colleagues on the back end who are going to also help answer your questions while we're chatting. Since it is a public forum, I ask that you not type in any personal information pertaining to your student, and you can reach out to us and we'll help navigate those questions. So let's go ahead and get things started. I want to introduce my colleagues. Hannah Hildreth is the Senior Coordinator for Communications and Outreach for the Student Success, Retention, and Innovation. And I have Kenny Importante, the Director for Asian Pacific American Student Affairs. So thank you both, Hannah and Kenny, for being here this afternoon. So I'm just going to start kicking off questions to both of you. Hannah, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. I know that I just mentioned your title, and I'm going to bounce to that screen there first. Because it's a mouthful, there's a lot in there. Can you start off by sharing with us, what does student success, retention, and innovation mean? And what are the various ways that your department serves our students?
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. So student success and retention and innovation, yes, definitely a mouthful. So the acronym for that is SSRI. So we serve as a hub for student success. Retention is a work we all do at the university, but you can find it centralized within student success. We understand the impact of different factors on the student experience is important so that we can both address barriers, promote success, and understand how we need to help. So we have about 9 teams in student success that help address a variety of different things. So we do things like mentoring, advising, connecting students to resources. We have tutoring and a lot more that I'll probably get to talk about later.
Awesome. So I'm actually going to start with the centers that you just mentioned. Would you mind going through like the 9 that you listed? And then I have a follow-up question for you about tutoring, but I'll let you answer that first part.
Yeah, so like I said, 9 centers. So we have the ACE Center, so that's advising for specific majors. We have the Advising Resource Center, and that's also known as ARC for Advising Resource Center. And then they provide general advising support, so to both students, advisors, faculty, and staff. So say your student, maybe they get confused and they really want to know about like who my advisor is. They're a great resource to connect. We can also do it on my team with SOS. We have ASEM, so they support for students in the STEM majors. CATS Academics is our next one. So they provide academic support to student athletes. And then we have the SALT Center, and they provide services to students with learning and attention challenges. And then we have the strategy team, which is home to SOS, which I work directly with. And we do a lot of research, assessment, collaboration, and a variety of different things on like the back end of student success. We have Think Tank, which provides tutoring and academic support. And so that has a lot of free and service-based like services your student can utilize. A lot of students love it. We have the Thrive Center, so they do a lot of community building and mentoring. We have the Transfer Student Center, so they support transfer students. And if you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to remember all 9 of these places? You can go to studentsuccess.arizona.edu to learn more, and we have direct links to all of those. And if you're ever confused, you can always contact SOS and we can connect you to them. We have a new beautiful building called the Bartlett Academic Success Center, and that's where most of these services are going to be housed. It just got built over the past year, and I'm in it now. You can't tell with my background, but it is a stunning building, and it's great for students to study and get connected to resources on campus.
It truly is beautiful. I can't wait to take a tour of it. So I'm going to jump back to the Think Tank, which is the tutoring location for our students. Can you share with us, do students have to pay for tutoring? where would they go when they're thinking about going to the think tank? Where is it located, and can anyone use it?
Yeah, so anyone can use it, and they have both free and fee service space. So general tutoring, most of it's going to be free, but they also do like academic skill workshops. So if many of your students are probably taking online classes right now, and they actually have workshops every Wednesday. I think this past Wednesday was actually like skills for online learning. So they have a variety of different things. Right now, most of their services are online, but they are offering some in-person ones. They can go ahead and head over to the Basque. So it's kind of convenient because it's behind the stadium, and most people know where the stadium is because it's huge on campus, but it's also behind Bear Down Gym and right by the libraries. So if you get lost, your student gets lost, they can go to map.arizona.edu to find it, but Think Tank is going to be on the second floor, or you can just go to their website, thinktank.arizona.edu. And they do subject-based tutoring. They also have a writing center. They also do like supplemental instruction. So that's going to be like students who've taken the class before and have been successful, helping other students be successful in those classes as well. And then they also have learning specialists who work one-on-one with students.
Awesome. And I know that outside of right now, our campus is kind of in a hybrid mode. But President Robbins has announced that our students will return to in-person classes in the fall. And so just to reiterate to all of our guests listening that the Think Tank has multiple locations across campus. So the Rec Center has a Think Tank location, and Hannah, correct me if I'm wrong, so much has changed in the last year. But I know that there's various Think Tank locations in the dorms. And if your student is not living in the dorm, they can still access that. There's
Yeah,
think tank locations, but just remind me of some of the other locations.
they're in the cultural centers as well, and it kind of varies. Usually if students are connected to like newsletters or even they just look at the website, they can find them, and they're at varying hours too. So it's not going to be like, oh, they can only go 9 to 5. Like all the different like setups on campus have different hours to help support students. But if they're looking to just go to the main one, it is located in the Basque building, but definitely on their website, you can see the different ones and the different hours, but they are spread out around campus to make it convenient for students.
Cool. And I know that you mentioned the Basque Center. And so just to remind everyone, that's the new facility located on the center of campus next to the library. Anyone who's been on our campus or touring it, it's right on that mall area, just a little further east. So for our families who are, I know that some families are walking around and taking those tours, you'll see a lot of construction, but it sounds like there's some offices that are open and students can access it. I'm getting nods from both of you. You mentioned SOS. Can you share with us a little bit more about what SOS is? And I know I just put the screen up, but who can access it?
Yeah, so SOS stands for Support Outreach Success. So we offer direct support to students in the overall University of Arizona community through proactive and intentional communication centered on growth mindset and sense of belonging. And when we say University of Arizona community, we mean literally everyone, from families, supporters, to professors, to staff members, to students, to community members, even people at different institutions. We're here to make sure people have their questions answered. So if you have questions or issues you're unsure where to go about, you can always ask SOS. So maybe you have a question about like, where's this building and how do I access Think Tank and how do I set up a meal plan? You could simply just message SOS and we'll get all your questions answered or refer you to the correct people. So you can text us. So the way our new texting system works is that you have to opt in. So while you're sitting here, if you know you're going to be asking questions, you can go ahead and just text SOS to 70542. And that opts you into our texting. That means that you can text us whenever and ask a question, and a real life staff member is going to respond. I say real life staff member because sometimes people think that it's like an automatic computer, because we also have a live chat service that allows people to communicate with us. And oftentimes, right, on other services, it's a bot, but it's not a bot. It's usually me or my supervisor working with SOS, but our program is collaborative in nature. So we'll refer you if we need to. Like when students or parents ask for advising support, we'll definitely make sure that we get them connected to their advisor. And because we don't provide that like advising plans, right? We want to make sure that students have their correct info. You can also email us. And then we do have a form on our website, sos.arizona.edu. And that's where you can also submit a question. It really just depends on like what type of question you have. If you feel like you want to provide context, and it might be just a little bit longer, emailing and doing the form is the best. But if it's just a quick question, like say you're coming to take your student in the phone, you're like, how do I get to their residence hall? You can text us and we'll make sure you get a map and everything. And then right now we are offering in-person hours. So Bartlett Academic Success Center. So we're usually here 10 to 2 on campus. So if you're planning to take a tour, definitely head over to the building. You can come see it. It's beautiful. Or if you want to come visit in the fall, we'll definitely be here welcoming everyone in.
Okay, so just to remind everyone, the SOS text is 70542. And I think there's a question in the chat, so it's on the screen right now, 70542. And it's a real person. Hannah could be answering. Kenny, I know you turned your screen on, so I'm going to ask you a few questions in just a second, but I'm hoping you can cover the locations of the cultural and resource centers so that we also know that there's some think tank specialists there as well. I have a couple more questions for Hannah. So belonging, why is that sense of belonging important to our students? And can you share with us the work that surrounds that?
Yeah, so sense of belonging is really important. And I'm going to break it down a little because there's actually researchers who look into sense of belonging on college campuses. So it refers to students' perceived social support on campus. It's a feeling or sensation of connectedness and the experience of mattering or feeling cared about, accepted, respected, valued by, important to the campus community and other campus, such as faculty, staff, and peers. So this is really important because when your student comes here, you want them to feel like they belong, right? And you want them to feel like they're connected to campus, that they are full on thriving. Because a lot of the imaging that they get through social media and, through watching movies is that like everybody's your best friend. You have like 10,000 friends at the university. There's parties you go to, all these things. And then they get here and sometimes it's like they forget that you have to relearn to make friends again. You have to relearn how to do school. And so that's why we think it's so important, like stressing the sense of belonging and making sure parents know and students know and how to get connected. Because it all relates back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you've all ever heard, it's the diagram on there. So maybe their physiological needs are met. They've got water, right? They have their residence hall or their apartment off campus, and then safety and security. Maybe they feel like supported. They go to therapy. They have the right finances through their scholarships, and maybe they also access food through our campus pantry. The next level is about belonging, right? So if they feel support, if they matter, if they have friends, and we want them to feel like they belong, right? So that they can achieve their full potential while they're at the university. It's a basic human need and it is contextual and fluid, right? So maybe when you drop your student off on campus this fall, you're like, no, they're doing fine. They were so happy. They're best friends with their roommate. Like they're super excited about their classes. And in that moment, they probably felt that way, but that definitely can change over time. Because they could have an instance maybe in a class where they didn't feel like they were supported by their faculty member, or maybe they didn't get into the sorority they wanted and they don't think that there's another option for them, even though there's tons of student organizations, right, and the culture centers on campus that can help them. And that's really why belonging is so important, because we want to see students persist here and not just survive here, but thrive, right? We want to see them get to graduation, making the most out of their Wildcat experience.
So important, and I fully agree. Right now, I think families are looking at the bottom of that hierarchy, the dorms, the living, food, finances, scholarships, and then your students get here and they need that sense of connection. So I appreciate you sharing that. There's another slide that you shared with me, Hannah, and I put it up here just because I love it. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, or we'll just let people read it, but I'll let you.
Yeah, so there's this quote we do in our general sense of belonging presentation. It says, student success is the product of thousands of small gestures extended on a daily basis by caring, supportive educators sprinkled through the institution who enact a talent development philosophy. And I feel like it really goes with this, with our graphic that says small acts and multiplied by hundreds of people can transform the University of Arizona. And I think that's so true, because it's great if your student has an amazing roommate, but they also need supportive staff, faculty, and friends to help them be successful here, as well as supporters back home. And all those little acts really do add up to help a student be successful while they're at the university.
Perfect, thank you. So switching gears just a little bit, I'm going to invite Kenny to join us. We are a large campus comprised of like maybe 45,000 students. Can you share with us how we make that smaller? I know that Hannah just shared with us great points on making our students feel like they belong, that sense of belonging, and she mentioned some great resources. Can you explain to our guests the cultural and resource centers, what they are first?
Sure. Thank you, Anna Marie and admissions colleagues for allowing me to share a little bit about the cultural and resource centers. So there are at the University of Arizona about 7 cultural and resource centers under our department. And that is basically the African American Student Affairs, Asian Pacific American Student Affairs, Native American Student Affairs, Women and Gender Resource Center, LGBTQ plus affairs, Immigrant Student Resource Center, and the Ana Alberto and Ana Guerrero Student Center, or otherwise known as GSC for many of the students and colleagues on this call. The Cultural and Resource Centers pretty much serves as a home away from home for many of the students who share the affinity groups within these spaces. We are located in various different parts of campus. I'll share with you that APASA, my office that I work with, and the Native American Student Affairs are located in the 2nd floor of Nugent Building, which is nearby, literally Old Main, the photo that you are actually seeing on this slide. The Guerrero Student Center is located in the Chavez Building, and along with the Immigrant Student Resource Center, whose ISRC's main goal is to work directly with undocumented and or DACA recipient students on campus. And then on the 4th floor of the Student Union is where the LGBTQ plus affairs and the Women and Gender Resource Center. ASA, or African American Student Affairs, is located in an MLK Martin Luther King building. I know that for some of you who may not have stepped into campus just yet, may not necessarily make sense at this moment, but know that many of the cultural resource centers are located in the central part of campus. Specifically, what it is that we do, I'll just share a little bit. We try to make sure that there are academic connections for all the students that we serve. So at times we'll even have academic advisors hanging out at the centers to provide their office hours. So in addition to what Hannah just suggested, there are think tank tutoring services that do take place at our centers, because we want to be able to have tutoring services available literally where students may be hanging out. And so those exist in all of the locations that I have shared earlier. The cultural resource centers also value the idea that we provide support and in taking care of the students' mental health and wellness being in general. So oftentimes when a student is stressed out, they can definitely come to any of the students or any of the staff members to process what's happening in case they need to listen, in case they need someone to listen to. However, in the more recent years, we're able to really address the needs of students related to mental health and wellness. As a result, in the last 6 months, 4 of the cultural centers will be able to have a clinician that will do half-time position located at APASA, ASA, Guerrero Student Center, and the Native American Student Affairs. Oftentimes, these spaces also serve as hubs for student organizations and clubs on campus, and providing, advising, and connecting new students to many of the cultural related student organizations that are partnered with our respective offices. In addition to that, the lounges where students do hang out in the evening time are utilized for student organizations to be able to hold their meetings. I know right now it's COVID times and many of us are not necessarily on campus, but we do expect that in August, when students do return, the cultural and resource centers will and should be open by the time fall semester starts, and we will be able to welcome many of the new students on campus when you all start. Earlier, Anna Marie also suggested that this is also a way to introduce students to finding community on campus. And so if you do have students coming to campus starting next year in the fall, we want to welcome them. And so oftentimes we will all have a welcome reception, but also hoping that we do one big welcome reception in the student union, just like what we used to do before COVID. So we do want to welcome all of the students to be able to join us and check us out, not just the cultural centers, but the student organizations that are affiliated with the centers are also able to communicate and interact as part of being able to recruit the new students to be connected to campus.
Right. I have a quick follow-up question.
Sure.
Does a student have to identify with one of the centers in order to go to a center? And how would that, like, do they just walk in? What's the process for a student who's never been on campus?
Sure. Any students on campus, regardless of your identity and whatnot, you are more than welcome to come into the center and our spaces. There are specific types of meetings where identities really do matter for the student organizations, for instance. However, it is typical that 99% of the time, any events and programs and initiatives that we hold is pretty much open to anyone and everyone, with a focus on obviously the cultural centers like goals in mind.
Right. Following that mission for sure. There was another follow-up question I had. Well, it's not a question, it was more of a statement. I know that even myself as a staff member, when your centers have events, you are so great at inviting staff, and I've seen professors there. Can you tell me what the relationship is with our professors and their connection with some of the resource centers?
Relationship with the faculty and staff, we try to make sure that there are ways for students to also interact and network with faculty members outside of the classroom. And so those are really important kind of relationships that are built beyond the classroom setting. And so oftentimes, for instance, for APASA, we will host a faculty and staff Fridays to encourage students to interact with faculty and staff. Oftentimes, many of the resource and cultural centers I mentioned also have a partnership with the ethnic studies or the gender and women's studies faculty members. And so those are really important for students to be able to have, again, connections in terms of validating the experiences on campus, but also what they're learning from some of the classes that they are taking. Oftentimes also that faculty and staff that they interact with are the ones that are able to provide reference checks, letters of support, letters of recommendation for scholarships, for jobs, and summer internships. So I think those are really important, that students do have access to not just the staff at the centers, but also faculty and staff that may look like them or shares identities with them, and that are able to make those connections during their undergraduate career. Real quick, one of the questions suggested how many students from Taiwan. Currently, we don't necessarily know at that moment, but we do have, you can name any ethnic background in the Asian diaspora. There are students here at U of A that identifies from a particular cultural or ethnic background as well.
Okay, so I'm just going to reiterate what you said. The University of Arizona has a great counseling and psych services department through Campus Health. But what you just mentioned is in the last 6 months, we've hired 4 counselors who work out of the resource centers. Was that correct, 4 of them?
Yes, there will be 4. Right now, 3 of them are hired, and we are looking to hire 1 more staff member for the one for APASA to make sure that students, again, are able to see and have access to clinicians that look like us, to be able to process that, and easily accessible when a student wants to make an appointment.
Such great news. And can you just remind us, can you run through the 4 centers?
Sure. It is the under the Native American Student Affairs, the Guerrero Student Center, the African American Student Affairs, and eventually in the summertime, we will have one for APASA, the Asian Pacific American Student Affairs.
Wonderful. It's great news. Kenny, is there anything else that I may have missed in questions in regards to the cultural and resource centers or ways that students can stay engaged or connected? Many of our students have not seen the campus, have not visited this fall that I may have missed.
I just want to invite parents and family to encourage students to attend any events hosted at any of the centers. I also want to share that there is a listserv where all of the centers are able to provide updates, resources, campus resources, and again, to make sure that they're connected. Our newsletter comes out on a weekly basis. Lastly, the one thing I also want to highlight is that if a student or family members do have questions related to financial aid packages or unsure what to do and feel like they're not necessarily getting answers, as a result of student activism from 4 years ago, the Cultural and Resource Centers also have a financial aid peer advisor that is available to meet with students at our centers. To be able to provide some advice and counseling in making sense of their financial aid package. Oftentimes, I think that's really important for students who may not know how to navigate financial aid package. And we're here to also provide advices aside from our scholarship and financial aid office.
Great, thank you. So I know that Hannah and Kenny listed quite a few locations on campus. So there is a QR code, and I know that Brittany has a link to that QR code. So, and it will also be posted on our website as soon as this chat is over, listing all of the ways that your students can stay connected and engaged. It will also include the contact information to SOS, which Hannah mentioned, the text number, email, and the various ways you can connect with her staff. We have included ASUA, which is our student senate, and they have over 600 clubs and organizations on campus that if your student has an interest, I've gone through that list and it's incredible. It's a really robust list. So I encourage you to click on the link ASUA, which is also listed in there to see what's available. There's Greek life opportunities if your student's interested in a fraternity or sorority. So just check out that list, and going back, I'm actually going to click back to that hierarchy that Hannah mentioned. I think there's oftentimes that, you know, we're focused as family members on this area, but once a student gets to campus, really what's going through their mind is how are they going to stay connected? How are they going to stay engaged and feel that sense of belonging? Hannah, if you're there, is there anything else that I missed that you wanted to mention? And then I'm going to look at the questions that are coming in.
No, I think you covered it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I thank both of you for the great information that you've shared with us. Okay, so there's a quick question about the newsletter, and I'm just going to do a little bit or add a little bit of clarity to it. So there's an opportunity for students and their family members to sign up for the listservs that Kenny mentioned for the various resource centers. I actually receive all of them, great content, great information, and they're always advertising the various events that they're hosting. So that's one way that students can stay in touch. For the parents and family members who are listening, I would really encourage you to go to our website, which is at the bottom of my contact information, uafamily.arizona.edu. In the top right-hand corner, click the join button, and you can sign up for our free membership. I will send a monthly newsletter throughout the academic year. So our last newsletter will go out in May, right before commencement ceremonies begin, and then they'll start up again in August. Any communication from the campus, from the president, if there's emergency communication, general information will come from our office. So I encourage you to sign up for this free membership. On Saturday, April 24th, we're hosting Admitted Student Day, and I know that many of your students have been invited to attend this event. It is virtual this year, but I have campus colleagues who are working really hard to put on a really interactive and a great event for both students and family members. Parent and Family Programs is hosting a session for parents parents and families called Supporting Your Student. And I'm inviting some of our advisory board members to host that and help answer your questions as well. So I invite you to that. And then here in Tucson, Arizona, we're hosting a fundraising golf tournament. All proceeds are benefiting the Campus Pantry. And Hannah, you mentioned the Campus Pantry, and I don't know if you or Kenny want to chat a little bit more about what the Campus Pantry is, who they serve, and what it is that they do.
Yeah, I can talk about it a little.
Thank you.
So the Campus Pantry is on main campus and it's in the Student Union Memorial Center, and it usually operates 3 times a week. And so their goal is to reduce food insecurity. So it's free to any student, staff, faculty, basically anyone in our community who needs access to groceries. It's not a point system. They have a little bit more info on their website. It's a really great resource for students. So maybe if they don't feel like their meal plan is enough for them, or maybe they just simply do not have enough food, right? They can go to the Campus Pantry and get groceries. They usually have fresh produce as well as non-perishable goods. And a lot of this stuff comes from donations from community members and people in Tucson. It's a really great service for students. So your student can definitely check it out. We want to normalize that it's okay to access these resources, right? They can get food staples, and all they have to do is get their CAT card, which is what they'll get. And that's also in the union. So if they're like, oh no, I want to go there, it's like right across from it. And they also actually have a closet on campus too that's connected with them, and they have free clothes for students as well there.
Great resources. A little secret is the student union has a rooftop garden, a greenhouse, and the produce that's grown in that rooftop garden by our students, their produce goes into the Campus Pantry. So it's a great way for all of us to be sustainable. So great resources. Yes, go ahead, Kenny.
And Anna Marie, I just wanted to add that many of the cultural and resource centers, events, and programs that are hosted, that are open for students, we almost always have food that is available for students. And so that's also one way where we're able to combat food insecurity on campus. And then in addition to that, the cultural centers have partnered with Campus Pantry in basically preparing every week at least 5 bags from Campus Pantry, where we're able to just leave it literally in our kitchenette area, and it's all open for students to help themselves without none of us ask questions. We just leave it there, and people really just do help themselves with any snacks, eggs, milk, bread. I will also just leave some like PBJ or other things in there so that folks can really just able to help themselves on their own.
Great resource. I was thinking about that when you were chatting, that these resource centers have kitchens, and students, if they're bringing their lunch to campus, they can drop it off. Am I saying this correctly? Leave their lunch in the kitchen, in the refrigerator, go to class, do what they need to do, come back,
Yep.
get it. Yeah.
Exactly, and then heat up and use their microwave. And I know some of our Asian food may smell a little, and so we want to make sure that like folks feel comfortable in being able to heat up their food in our centers, and so that's one way to really help and validate students' experiences.
Yeah, that's perfect. There's a question in the chat. How do I access previous chats? So on the screen right now, under the golf tournament, it's uafamily.arizona.edu/events. All of our coffee chats that we've hosted this semester, all of the recordings live there, along with the accompanying resource sheet similar to today, that, the QR code that we hosted. So as soon as this chat's over and we download the recording, we'll post the recording on this website. So I want to thank you, Hannah, Kenny, for your time, for all of your knowledge, and for the incredible ways that you support our students throughout the year. I know a lot of work goes into that, a lot of planning, and so thank you for all that you do. For our parents and family members listening, I again invite you to go to our website to look at all of the dates, the events, and to review any of our chats that we've hosted. And hopefully we will see you on April 24th at Admitted Student Day. So with that, I say thank you, and you all have a great afternoon.